A very warm welcome to all of you. This is Business Today and today is 17th of May 2017. So first let's have a look at one of the top stories from the world of business. Sri Lankan exports will be allowed to enter into the European Union from 19th May without customs duty. So this is indeed great news for us, and we are expecting a lot of positives taking place in our economy through GSP Plus status coming on board. With that, let's move on to the business personality segment to start our show for today. We hope to revolve our conversation today around hospitality sector, and we have a veteran from that field joining us today. So let's have a look at the introduction to welcome our guests for tonight.
Rohan Fernandopulle spearheaded the culinary operations at Hilton International for 27 years, prior to assuming duties as the general manager of Water's Edge in 2013. In 2002, he led the culinary team of Hilton to Japan for the Black Box Regional Championship, winning silver whilst whisking away gold and silver medals at the Culinary Olympics. He won the Chef of the Year Presidential Award in Travel and Tourism in 2008 and many medals at the Food and Hotel Asia International culinary competitions in Singapore. Besides being the first Sri Lankan executive chef of Hilton Colombo, Rohan Fernandopulle is also the only Sri Lankan member of the prestigious Le Club des Chefs, where, as a member of this elite group, he had the privilege of visiting the White House in July 2013. He is also a member of the renowned chain des Rôtisseurs as Chef Rôtisseur. Presently Rohan, as the general manager of Water's Edge, is associated as a culinary advisor for much institution including Dilma. He spearheaded the development of Water's Edge Golf Club to a fully fledged culinary hub and events destination that it is today. He was also responsible for the revenue growth of 30% and a profit growth of 40% each year for 3 years under his leadership at Water's Edge.
Yes, and that is Mr. Rohan Fernandopulle, General Manager of Water's Edge, joining us. A very good evening to you.
Very good evening. Thank you.
Okay, so today you are holding the position as General Manager at Water's Edge. But prior to taking these responsibilities, you were a chef and you were the executive chef at Hilton for 15 long years. So how has this journey been moving from the kitchen to the boardroom?
Let me tell you, that's a bit of a long story.
If you can summarize
it. Yeah. As a kid, I love my food. And I used to watch my mother and my grandmother, how they used to cook. And I really enjoyed watching them cooking. When I was a teen, I knew my pol sambal and the dal. Okay. Right? And at that time, I was able to cook a complete meal to my friends who were coming, for group studies at home when my parents were not there. I used to cook for them, and then they really enjoyed. So after leaving school, I joined HECAB as a laboratory technologist. I did my external degree in chemistry and double maths. Then, I was young. Then I had to take some crazy decisions. Then I joined Confifi Management as a management trainee at Palm Gardens. Then I went to the front office first, then to the kitchen. I wanted to remain in the kitchen because it was a coincidence that I actually took up hotelieri. Okay. And I knew there was something interesting in the kitchen. There also I wanted to do my academics, and I went to the hotel school, graduated myself. Then I actually specialized professional cookery. I got the award being the best student in practical. After 5 years, then I actually joined Hilton. Worked in Europe, Middle East, in Asia, then came back to Sri Lanka, joined the brigade as a sous chef. Then I was promoted as the executive chef. So I don't have to tell you about the story because it was already told.
Yes,
right? Already told. Led the Hilton culinary team, winning many awards, competitions.
And if you can talk about your current position.
Yes, I just want to come there. Then Water's Edge, they were looking for a person to manage the Chogam retreat. Retreat happened at the Water's Edge, which means the real Chogam meeting happened at the Water's Edge. So they were looking for somebody who had the experience of doing catering, banquets and conference for heads of states, which I already actually did here and overseas as well. Here I am as the general manager of the Water's Edge.
Oh, lovely. And if you look at Water's Edge, it is not situated in the heart of Colombo, and it doesn't have accommodation facility. Yet people keep on coming, tourists keep on coming. What attracts tourists to come to Water's Edge? What are your main attractions?
Let me tell you this way. The showpiece of a hotel is food and beverage.
Okay.
The most happening place in a hotel is food and beverage. And I consider food and beverage is the heart of the hotel's operation. You see, nowadays there are celebrity chefs, sommeliers, right, mixologies. These are personalities in F&B. They are like, the Hollywood stars. They interact with customers, people, and they take them through a total experience. And this is exactly what we strive to excel at Water's Edge. In addition, we have the best location and the surroundings.
Definitely.
And also, we also have our staff who will go beyond and give exceptional service. So that is the secret of Water's Edge.
Right. So you were talking about dining being one of the key attractions at Water's Edge. So can you explain how you expand a customer's experience just beyond a meal?
I like this topic because it is very much closer to my heart. Just food alone is it doesn't work. You have to have the total experience. A classic example I'll tell you is the new tuna paha. Actually, this is one of my initiatives, and first of all, I have to thank our Honorable Minister, Partly Champaka Ranawaka. We come under Minister of Megapolis, who actually gave me the fullest support and endorsed the concept, and also our chairman, Mr. Chamat De Silva, and the board of directors, right, where they actually approved the project and gave the financial assistance. Now, we thought how we can differentiate Tuna Paha restaurant, from all the other Sri Lankan restaurants in the country. So, genuine Sri Lankan food in a contemporary setting to provide a total experience engaging all human senses. This focus on three different topics. First is the name that is traditional but unique to the restaurant. Tuna Paha. What is the meaning? The definition is Tuna Paha is a mix of different spices used in our kitchens. But our interpretation is a little bit different. Tuna means 3 great personalities at the Tuna Paha kitchen, 3 great chefs,
Right.
blended with 3 ethnicities.
Right. Okay.
Right. And second is the concept and the sustainability. Concept, most of the Sri Lankan restaurants, they have buffets, but we bring the buffet to your table
Okay.
with a flair.
All right. Okay.
If you remember the good old tradition of, the ambula being brought by the spouses of the farmers when they are working in the fields on their heads, the same thing that we are practicing there. And also, I want to talk about the sustainability. We actually took about 20 underprivileged children from the area, and they put them through a proper training.
As a CSR activity as well.
Definitely, right? Training, and they are the ones who are working there. And the street vendors, they are from the neighborhood. The ammes who make the Sri Lankan sweetmeats, kaung cookies, pittu, indiapa and all. So we have actually improved the livelihood of these people, right, from the neighborhood. And also the third one is the marketplace. Whatever we serve in this restaurant, from the food to chinaware, cutlery, even the uniforms are merchandised at a marketplace where the customer can buy.
Okay.
So this is actually going beyond what you said, not only the
Expanding
food, the total
customer experience, right? So also Waters had started its operations only 14 years ago. It is quite a late entrant to the market. By that time, all the hotels, star class hotels, were well established. Still, when you think of banquet facilities, Waters Edge is among the top favorites. So how did you position yourself so well in the market being a late entrant?
As you said, initially Waters Edge was a golf club. Then they added the banquet facilities in. Since I took over, we added a lot of food and beverage outlets, the restaurants, and also we increased some of the best banquet venues. And today Waters Edge is one of the best F&B operations in Sri Lanka.
Right, so you do not have accommodation facility. Still, that is one of the main stream of revenue actually. So without this stream coming into your organization, how do you manage profitability?
That's a good question. See, in a normal hotel, you generate more revenue and profits through rooms. But where the Waters Edge is concerned, we don't have rooms. We have the F&B operations. That's our core business. So rooms, talking about, you asked me about the profitability. Rooms, the conversion or the profitability is something like 80% or even more. You're lucky. With food and beverage, you can do 35% conversion.
Okay.
But you have to, if you want to make more money, then what do? You have to do volumes, right? So that is exactly what we are doing. And year on year, right, for the last 3 years, we have increased the revenue by 30%, and not only the revenue, but the profitability by 40%.
Okay, so if you look at the whole industry, the hospitality industry, as a veteran, what are the challenges and the threats you see in the traditional hospitality sector?
What I can foresee as the biggest threat or the challenge is the vacuum of the skilled or the trained staff. If you take the tourist arrivals, forecasted tourist arrivals, and the number of hotels and restaurants which are coming up in the future, actually it's scary.
Okay.
Right? If you want to give me, I'll give you some figures. Now 2016, we ended up with 2.2 million of tourist arrivals.
Okay.
And the forecast for 2020 is 4 million. And 2016, the direct employment, I'm talking about the hotels and the restaurants,
Okay.
it's about 162,000. And 2020, we need about 242,000. So where are we going to find these people, right? So I know the government, they are setting up different hotel schools and training centers all over the island. But as a industry professional, my thinking is we also can do our own training in our own hotels, right? See, each hotel, depending on how big the hotel is, you can do, and depending on the how big the hotel, your facilities, right, your strengths, you can do different training programs, right? Say, now we started a training program with kitchen apprentices and food and beverage restaurants, right? We took about 30 people,
Okay.
right? Now, and what we do, we put them through a training, practical and theory. Then after 6 months, we will actually give them a certificate,
Okay.
right? Now, what do we do if we don't have vacancies? What do we do? So we absorb, if there are vacancies, we absorb, and the rest we will release to the industry,
Right.
right? So that is what I am actually saying. If all the hotels get together and if we have our own training programs, right, you can actually contribute to this. Actually, it's a solution for the problem.
Okay.
But only thing, you have to have a proper guidance or a proper syllabus.
Okay, so you were talking about training, and if you look at the industry, what is the industry doing to promote local talent into the international market, to take them onto the international platform, basically?
That's a good question. Actually, it's. I will tell you. I'll give you an example of an up-and-coming event. You see, if you are a hotelier, you have to have, international exposure, right, and experience.
Definitely.
Right. Now, if you can't go overseas, if you can't go abroad and work in a hotel overseas, what will happen, right? Now, this is where we have competitions, right? Especially international competitions. And I'm telling you, through these competitions, right, when you take part in a competition, it's not only to win the competition. You learn a lot.
It is exposure.
Exposure. You will see the quality and the standards. You will see the benchmarks, right? And you will adjust yourself, right? And we are also, apart from my job, I'm also the president of the Bocuse d'Or in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So, international.
So are there any upcoming events?
Yes. I'll come into that. 2012, Bocuse d'Or International, the head office in France, they actually invited Sri Lanka to take part in this Bocuse d'Or competition. Right? Talking about the competition, Bocuse d'Or is considered to be the biggest and the most reputed live cooking competition in the world. Right? A solid 5.5 hours from the scratch, you have to produce, two types, a meat and a fish, for 14 people. Now, we have, this is the 4th time that Sri Lanka is taking part, and we are lucky that one Sri Lankan has gone into the world finals.
Right.
So 30th of June, we are selecting the competition, local selection, where we select the best chef and the apprentice. It's a team, right? So you have to be the best of the best to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Then we go to the Asian region, where 15 countries will take part. They are big boys, where the F&B is concerned, like, the Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, all that. But we were lucky. Once we went, right, we got selected.
It's quite an achievement.
Yes. Then you go to Lyon. That's the world competition. It's a dream of any chef, like, to go to Lyon. Now what will happen? See, when this guy went to Lyon for the finals, right, we have put Sri Lanka in the culinary map. That's the answer for your question.
Right. So we got to say goodbye as we have a time restriction. So thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Rohan Fernandopulle. It was lovely having you with us.
Thank you, Nisanga.
Right. With that, we are ready to move on to a short commercial break. We'll be back with you soon. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Business Today, and we are ready to move on to our final segment, and we hope to talk about quite a timely topic as the whole world has been hit by one of the largest cyber attacks in recent times, affecting over 100 countries, including Sri Lanka. So by now you would have been informed of this threat, yet you may be having questions and some areas that you are not clear of. So we are ready to clear all those doubts, as we have with us Mr. Asela Vaidyalankara. He is an expert on cyber security. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So to start things off, we all have been informed of this attack, ransomware. But what is ransomware exactly?
Thank you very much for taking the time to actually discuss about this very important topic. Well, when we discuss about ransomware is a type of malware.
Okay.
Malware is very simply, I will try to use as much as possible layman's terms because I want the audience to understand what the threat is. So malware is a type of program that infects a computer and does things that it's not supposed to do. Malicious things. It steals your data, it corrupts your data, transmits certain things that it's not supposed to. So one of the key types of malware is what we call ransomware. Now what ransomware does is, very simply, once it's affected a system, it will take over that system, it will encrypt all the data in that system, and the person using that particular machine will not have access to that particular data. So what do? Then you are given a ransom note by a hacker or a cyber criminal to say you must pay X amount of dollars or X amount of money, otherwise your data will be completely gone. So that is ransomware, very simply in a nutshell. And this is the type of ransomware that is affecting right now worldwide, is called WannaCry. WannaCry is a very violent strain of ransomware that's affected, I think, close to about 150 countries right now. And if you could give me the opportunity, I will give you a little bit of a background on how this threat came to be.
I was going to come to that question, asking what this WannaCry ransomware is. You can go ahead.
So where we actually came to this threat is, right now, as you know, it's spread to about 150 countries. It is affected multiple computer systems. For example, the NHS, the National Health Service of United Kingdom, completely came to a standstill. For 24 hours, patients were not admitted to hospitals, surgeries were not there, ambulances were not dispatched. So such a critical service in a country was affected by this particular type of ransomware. For me to explain where we started, we must go a few months back. About the February of this year, WikiLeaks gave details of the National Security Agency, the NSA of the United States, was using certain types of cyber security tools to hack into countries. This is what the intelligence agencies of Western powers do. So once that details came into light, there was one particular type of threat that they had used called Eternal Blue. That was a vulnerability in the Windows systems. Windows is a type of operating system. A vulnerability in this Windows system that they had used to attack their enemies for their gains. Once this flaw was published in WikiLeaks, it became general knowledge. But what happened was Microsoft, the company responsible for the Windows operating system, immediately released a patch for this issue. However, what happens is, once they had released this patch was to be ideally updated by people using Windows. But what happened was, within the period to February, March to now, unfortunately companies, organizations, individuals had not done that. And this gap has given rise to this ransomware taking advantage of that particular vulnerability and spreading across the world actually right now, because it stands at about 150 countries right now. And actually this evening SL-CERT, the body responsible for cybersecurity in Sri Lanka, had released a statement saying that in fact Sri Lanka also is affected now.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
It's actually, you spoke about what it is, but also can you talk about the severity of this attack as to how the global community has been affected?
Certainly. Well, as I mentioned, the NHS, the National Health Service, was impacted. In Italy, one of the largest telcos called Telefonica, they were affected and the operations were affected. There are several accounts of certain countries, companies, organizations, operations being affected. Right now, it's if you take the top countries that is affected, it is literally Russia, the United Kingdom, India, Vietnam. There are so many countries and actually so many organizations that is affected, and day-to-day operations are affected. Because Nisanga, what you must understand is, the moment this particular ransomware takes over your machine, it gives a warning. And when all you have is a pop-up warning saying you must pay $300 to the hackers or the cyber criminals to release your data. You have a window of 6 hours to do that. After 3 hours, your ransom goes double. So at the end of that 6 hours, your data is completely erased. So any data or any information or any system or any other things that you have in your particular machines is completely erased and gone. So can you imagine, for a company, for an organization, how much it will affect operations, how much it will affect any particular type of day-to-day happenings in an organization. Best example was, like I mentioned, the NHS, where for one day, can you imagine a country like the United Kingdom, entire health service has grounded to a halt. Patients were turned away. Surgeries, unless it was emergency surgeries, those all were stopped and rescheduled, because they had to first look at the situation and try to address it. So that is the impact globally that we are suffering right now. But thanks to actually most of this world cybersecurity experts, they have managed to slow this down. And actually on Monday we were expecting a rise in the amount of infected computers, but fortunately it did not do that. So we have managed to actually, this particular type of WannaCry ransomware, the security researchers have managed to stop it. And I must also mention the great work done by the Sri Lanka CERT. They have also tirelessly updated the companies and the individuals about what is happening, and special mention must be made about them, about the work that they are doing.
And actually the speed of spreading this attack is unbelievable, because within the first 24 hours it attacked over 75 countries, and the next 24 hours over 100 countries, and today it's over 150 countries. So how did this malware spread so fast?
Very good question. So I mentioned that there's a particular type of vulnerability that this ransomware attacks. But what is interesting is that once this affects one machine, it automatically starts to search for similar machines with a similar vulnerability. Now, if you look back last year, usually a ransomware or a particular type of malware will spread by email, by you clicking on something, by somebody inserting maybe a flash drive or a memory stick, and then it's spreading to a system. But this one is taken one step further, because when it attacks one system, or when it's infected one system or one machine, it actively looks around the internet for the other machines that it can infect. That is why, even for example, when you look at something like the NHS, which is a private network, one computer that was connected to the internet was able to then spread it across an internal network which is not connected to the internet. And that is how fast this spreads, because this has the ability once it infects a machine, to look for other machines that can it infect, which is why it has spread on the rate and the intensity that it has spread right now.
Okay, so how many incidents have been reported in Sri Lanka?
I believe as at now, I believe it was one.
Just one.
Just one for the moment, and SLCert was very effective in combating that. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Which means we have to be careful. It's
Absolutely.
already around.
Absolutely.
Right? So how can a person protect their computers and devices from this malware?
Very good question. In fact, there are, I would say, two ways. First of all, I would look at an individual, that is you and me.
Okay.
And then I will talk about a company also. So for an individual, my first advice is, because what we see very clearly is that this particular type of malware spread because although the manufacturer, Microsoft, had given the security update, people have, maybe for other reasons or maybe negligence, has not updated their system. And because of that, has given this gap to let this malware propagate or let this ransomware propagate. So my first advice to any individual watching, anyone watching out there, please go and update your operating system, Windows operating systems, because those are the ones that are affected. My next advice is, and this is very important, you must back up your data. So even, for example, you have documents. I'm sure there are a lot of people who use laptops for daily work, personal work, business work, all that. So please back up your data on a device that is not connected to the internet, preferably a hard disk, external hard disk, a memory stick, something of the sort, that then you can back that up every day and keep it. So every day, this 5-10 minute exercise where you're done for the day, please back up the information, back up the data. Then at least if there is a cyber incident or when your data is compromised in some way, you have a backup.
Right.
One more thing I must mention is, this is very important for individuals in the Southeast Asian region.
Okay.
We have a tendency to not have original software, counterfeit software.
It's very common.
Very common, actually. Researchers done in Sri Lanka have found it's very, very common. But again, when you have situations like this, Nisanga, it becomes very dangerous, because as you can see now, the official manufacturer has given an update. But imagine for a moment, if you have a counterfeit product, you're not accessible for those updates, and then you're putting yourself at risk. So I'm telling everyone also, listen, you might get a counterfeit product for maybe free or maybe a very small price, but the end of the day, the price you will pay is far more than what you have paid initially. So you must take a long-term view of that.
Right.
Now, when you look at companies, first of all, I'm sure the reason for companies also, we must be sympathetic, because companies have not given this update immediately, is because when you look at a company, there are so many operations that run within a company. So when the new software update comes, sometimes they don't want to do it because internally the operations and systems might get affected. But they must somehow come up with a process, a methodology, where they can immediately, when there's an incident or immediately when there's an update, make sure there is a plan to update your system. That could be off-peak hours, that could be maybe Saturday, Sunday, or whatever. Have a plan when immediately there's a security update to update them. Second one, and this is very important, and this is something we have told most of the top 5 or top 10 companies in Sri Lanka, is have cyber security drills. Now, we don't know what the threat is. Sometime today it's ransomware, tomorrow it's malware, tomorrow it's something else. So when
still people are not clear of what it is.
Exactly. So especially for high risk institutions, when you look at banks, telecommunication, big conglomerates, any company or organization where you feel that your data and systems are important, they must carry out regular cyber security drills. Now, there are enough and more companies that will help you do these kind of exercises. So as a practice, you have seen companies doing fire drills. Why do they do it? Because obviously when there is a fire, then everybody knows what is the situation and how to react. Similarly, cyber security drills can be conducted in maybe a quarterly or a monthly basis, just to inform people. Because what we have seen is cyber security protection is 3 aspects: people, process, and machines. So it is not only the technology or the machines that will protect you at the end of the day. It is your people and it is your processes. The more the people are informed, like you mentioned, because that is why we are taking this effort to inform and educate people. Because more they are informed, more they are aware of it, more they can effectively manage this situation.
Okay, so you mentioned that there was just one incident reported so far. But there can be many more that it's not still reported. So if someone faces such a situation, what should you do immediately?
Well, first advice is, especially now, usually what these hackers demand is $300 as a payment. I strongly advise anyone not to make that payment, because what happens is, although it seems like option, if you pay that money today, tomorrow they can do more complicated attacks. That is one. Another one is, there's a risk that if you pay that money, what if he gives only 25% of your data?
We are not sure of
We are
the
not
outcome.
sure, because you are dealing with, bear in mind, you are dealing with criminal entities. You are not dealing with any other entities, you are dealing with a criminal entity. So the trust element is also not there. But again, if you manage to find out the other steps that I said, of backing up the data, of keeping your systems updated, and also one more point, make sure you are very, very conscious of your communication. For example, make sure that you are communicating with trusted and verified people. For example, Nisanga, sometimes let's say a person that you know, but who hasn't communicated with you on a email, suddenly decides to send you an email. Common sense, you can actually call that person and ask, you have sent me an email, what is this? So at those kind of common sense approaches sometimes prevents a bigger threat to you in the long run. So those are some of the things that you can do to prevent this or to mitigate this. But can we stop it? No. That's a short answer.
So what is the current status right now with this ransomware?
Current status as at now is they've managed to slow it down. They've some of the security researchers in the UK have managed to discover that part of the code there was a kill switch. So they have identified that and they've managed to stop it spreading worldwide.
From yesterday to today, from 100 countries to 150 countries, it's still spreading.
It's still spreading because of the factors I've mentioned. Because generally still a large chunk of people have still not updated their systems with the latest security patches that Microsoft has provided, which is why we keep on telling people, individuals, companies to please ensure that your systems are up to date. But given the scale it spread, we have managed, actually the security researchers worldwide have managed to stop it and managed to ensure that it has slowed down to a certain degree, which is a good news.
Right. It was a very useful conversation we had with you. It was a very informative discussion we had with you. Thank you very much, Asela, for your thoughts.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
With that, we got to wind up for today. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week. Good night and take care.